Welcome everyone to this briefing brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. In Hebrew, our name is Abitchonistim. IDSF is the leading Israeli organization advocating for strong, national security-oriented policies to guide the state of Israel. We are a movement of more than 20,000 people, including many reserve officers and operators from all branches of the Israel Defense establishment. Thank you so much to all of our viewers, all of our supporters for joining us in this briefing. Earlier today, I sat down with Brigadier General Amir Avivi to discuss his recent meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu. And therefore, with your permission, I'm going to play you the recording that we did earlier today. General Avivi is not available at this hour, so we pre-recorded it. Please give me a moment to start the recording. Brigadier General Amir Avivi, founder and chairman of IDSF, thank you so much for joining me today. Last week, you met with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu with other leaders of IDSF. What can you share with us about that meeting?
Well, it was a long meeting, an hour and a half. We spoke mostly about two issues. One is the state of war, what needs to be done, what is the right way to move forward with the destruction of Hamas as a governmental and military entity. We discussed this at length. One of the things that we told the Prime Minister is when you do a military campaign, you must set a very clear timetable. Even if you don't exactly manage to stick to the timetable, there needs to be a time frame, which at the moment doesn't exist. We also encouraged him to go more to details about exactly which specific Hamas battalions were not destroyed yet, and see exactly when and how the IDF is intending to destroy them, and in what time frame. And then we discussed the issue of Philadelphia. There is a lot of talking about the need to control the Egyptian border. At the moment in Rafah, there is more than 1,200,000 Palestinians. Most of the Palestinians are now in the south of Gaza. In the city of Gaza, there is only 200,000 Palestinians, which are also concentrated in a specific area near the Shifa hospital and near the sea. And we discussed how and in what timetable you can move all these people from Rafah to the shore in order to take over Rafah city and the border with Egypt, and also different ways in which you can create control in this border. I won't go too much into details because we presented several options. We really went in depth, opening maps and going into details about that. I think that a part of really the professional side of a meeting like that, the most important thing I think that happens when we meet the Prime Minister, especially during war, is empowering him. It's strengthening him, saying, you know, we are standing behind the cabinet and the army. You can win this war, to push forward and so on, because we know that being a prime minister, it's a very lonely position. Most of the people around him spend most of the time just thinking how to overthrow him. He doesn't have many chances to speak to people who are not coming to him or speaking to him from political aspirations, but really what's the right thing for the people of Israel and the country, from a patriotic stance and a professional stance, and really wanting him to succeed, not because it's Netanyahu, because his success is our success. We need him to manage to lead the country to a win. So for him, definitely spending a long time with us, for him is like going to the spa. Well, most of the time is being attacked and under all the time constrained and so on. So I think it was a very fruitful meeting, and indeed once we presented good solutions for the Egyptian border, 2 days later we announced clearly that we're going to take over Rafah and control the Egyptian border. This is crucial for our ability to win, because all the buildup of power, all the weapons, everything is coming from Egypt into Gaza, and there is no way to stop it without controlling this border. Even in a way, from point of view of what is the Gazan society feeling, they are concentrated in Rafah. Hamas is controlling Rafah, so it's also controlling all the society. They are all there. So they don't feel that Hamas is not governing them, although Hamas lost control in the northern part of Gaza. We discussed a bit also Iran and Hezbollah, but most of the meeting was really focused on Gaza.
Looking at Egypt, is there a concern that IDF moving into the Gaza-Egypt border will throw the Egypt-Israel peace agreement into peril?
Well, I don't think so, because what interest are we hurting? I mean, we're not going into Egypt. We're not conquering anything in Egypt. This is about Israel and Hamas. This is not about Egypt. And why should Egypt be against Israel controlling this border and not Hamas? Doesn't make sense. So even if they are unhappy, it's our side of the border, not their side of the border. And therefore, I don't see anything in this scenario that should bring Egypt to a place where they say strategic interests are being hurt here. And they need to be held responsible for what they did. They weaponized Hamas. This is the truth, the ugly truth, as we say. They weaponized Hamas. So we have all the right to take over this border on the Gazan side, not on the Egyptian side, and control it.
And to what extent would the Muslim Brotherhood on the Egyptian border start attacking Israel? Is that a likely possibility?
Muslim Brotherhood is not controlling Egypt. The Muslim Brotherhood is the enemy of the Egyptian regime. They overthrew the regime at the time, Mubarak, and then Sisi managed to take control again of the country. For him, Muslim Brotherhood is a big enemy. So he should be happy with the fact that we are destroying an entity that is Muslim Brotherhood.
Okay, let's move to southern Lebanon if we can. Are you able to provide an update about what the IDF is doing on the border or even in Lebanon?
So when we started the war on the 7th of October, all Radwan forces were in full readiness, thousands and thousands of terrorists, Hezbollah terrorists, full readiness in a very big proximity to all our towns, to the border. Since then, the IDF has managed to push most of Hezbollah forces 6, 7, 8 kilometers from the border by destroying systematically their forces along the border in a way that created a reality where they are moving more and more to the north. Yet, Hezbollah has long-range anti-tank missiles, which they shot and are shooting still. They are shooting rockets. So the fighting is ongoing and it's complicated. We're still overall on the defense in the north because we're still on the offensive in Gaza. And because the IDF has released part of the reserve units, and because it's also released part of the regular units to freshen them up, give them some vacation and so on, the pressure on Gaza is a bit less than before. And we'll have to go back and enlarge the attack again in order to reach the missions that we need to reach. We have 3 divisions at the moment in Gaza, but I think that we need to go back to pressure more until we really manage to achieve the goals of war, which is the destruction of Hamas.
And just to clarify, you mentioned in your conversation with the Prime Minister a need to have a clear timeline with Gaza, and certainly there was a goal with Gaza and Hamas. Does that timeline or that goal exist in the north?
Well, I think that the issue of putting a timeline in Gaza is affecting the north, because the longer it takes to destroy Hamas, the longer it takes to then shift our forces to the north and deal with Hezbollah one way or another. Even if you want to solve the issue with Hezbollah diplomatically, you need to threaten war, you need to bring the units to the north. You cannot do that. You didn't finish destroying Hamas. So you need to set a timetable and pressure the army to finish the missions in a way that will enable the citizens of the south to go back to their homes, and also enable to shift most of the forces north, and then see how you deal with Hezbollah, whether it's by force or diplomatically. But the more Gaza takes time, obviously the big question, what will happen in the north and when, becomes a big problem.
Now, there are different reports about the status of the smaller towns on the northern border in terms of how destroyed they may be. Are you able to share a little bit about that?
So there is definitely some level of destruction, and also when people are not in the towns, overall there's deterioration inside the towns. It's something that we'll have to deal with and rebuild these towns, both in the south and the north. It's really a reality we haven't faced. We never faced a reality like that, actually, not even in the independence war. It's a very, very complex reality. And in this case, we need patience, and we need patience, but we need to push the whole system to win decisively, both in the south and in the north, in order to really reach a reality where people are safe, they can go back home, and for a long time.
So we have a diplomatic briefing coming up with IDSF. Are you able to share maybe the most poignant message that you want to express to the international diplomat community here in Israel?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about several things. One is the state of affairs, talking about the war, what we encountered, how is it going on, the kind of fighting that we're experiencing, the underground infrastructure, all this military building inside civil areas, whether it's mosques, schools, hospitals, everything that we encountered, and why it's taking so long, the complexity of this kind of warfare. This is one thing. The other thing we'll talk about is the day after. What would it look like? What is required from a security point of view, but also civil point of view? What it means when Israel says we're not going to agree to Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, or Palestinian Authority. So what are the options? What can we look at? The third issue we'll talk about is international law, the way Israel is adhering to international law, the humanitarian aid that we are providing, the accusations we're dealing with now in Hague. So we'll have international law specialists talking about that. And the last issue, which should be the most relevant and important for all countries that will be attending the briefing, is the regional and global issue. This Russian, Chinese, Iranian front one we are dealing with, the Houthis, the militias in Iraq, Hezbollah, the need to build a coalition of the West and the Sunni world in order to deal with these challenges, how to prevent a regional or global war, and really try to stabilize the Middle East, and what will happen if the US won't show leadership and won't be strong on our enemies. How can this deteriorate the situation regionally and globally? So definitely a lot to discuss. And I'm sure this is going to be very interesting.
General, thank you so much for joining. Last question for the day. There was tragically an attack in Ra'anana yesterday. Do you think this is going to become a growing concern of these types of attacks in major cities in Israel?
So obviously, Hamas, Iran, Hezbollah are all trying to open as many fronts they can against Israel. And for the last 2 years, Judea and Samaria was a very, very active front with a lot of terror attacks emanating from this region. And so we need to be in alert. We need to understand that they're going to continue to try to carry out attacks, and we need to be very proactive and apprehend terrorists and operate inside the cities. There is a lot, I would say, of support in the Palestinian society in Judea and Samaria for the 7th of October massacre and support of Hamas. And this is why, unlike what the Defense Administration is saying, I think that we shouldn't let Palestinians work in Israel. This will be a grave danger to Israelis. We cannot take this risk. The army, the Ministry of Defense are saying if they are not going to work, maybe they will riot, maybe they will attack. Okay, the army can deal with this in Judea and Samaria, in the Palestinian cities. We don't need to transfer this risk to the center of Israel, to the Israeli society. Let the army deal with this. And I think this is a very relevant discussion that we're having at the moment, where most of the cabinet is saying, no, we won't allow Palestinians to come and work in Israel when they're all incited and the chances of terror are big.
Okay, thank you so much. It sounds like on that issue of Palestinians working in Israel, we need to really devote some briefings too to understand really the implications of all of that. So maybe we'll plan future discussions on that issue.
Yeah, and Moshe, I want to remind that on the 25th of January, we'll have a big convention in Ashkelon discussing all these issues. It will be broadcasted live on Ynet, one of the leading broadcasting organizations in Israel. It's going to be very interesting.
Absolutely. So for everyone who attends our briefing today, we'll make sure to get that link out so that they can register and attend in person if they are in Israel. I'm going to put up in the chat the link for those of you who want to register for our January 25th conference. And just a reminder to all, it will be in Hebrew. If you are living in Israel and you want to stop by, amazing. If you want to fly in from the States or from the UK or Canada or Australia, wherever you're coming from, you're of course more than welcome. Please register. And as the general mentioned, we will have a live stream on Ynet. The live stream will be in Hebrew. So if you come to the conference in person, we will have a translator. You'll get a headset, and the Ynet is in Hebrew. And with that, I'm very pleased to be joined by Gilad Seaman. Gilad is the son of Danny, who many of you know from our briefings. And Gilad just wrapped up 3 years of service in the IDF, in the Tzanchanim, in the paratroopers unit in 890 Battalion. And he spent some time in Gaza. And we wanted to bring to you Gilad's story. So please, the Seaman family, take it away.
Thank you, Moshe. We were surprised last night. We knew it was going to happen soon, but we were surprised last night. We knew the paratroopers had completed their duties in Gaza, and last night we were informed that he can come home. Gilad completed his service on the 6th of December, and it was extended automatically while they were in Gaza, and then he chose to volunteer. When they first came out after 80-some days in Gaza, he chose to volunteer to go back in to help train the newcomers, the younger soldiers that just completed their basic training. We were very happy about that, as you can imagine. I'm being very sarcastic. But I guess we brought him out right. And he was back in there for the past 3 weeks in Gaza and officially completed his mandatory service this week and will be assigned to a reserve. And I thought, as we were discussing it earlier today, he was telling us about his service there. I said, why should we just enjoy this? Why not share it with the people who are following our briefing? And that's why I suggested to you, Gilad and the unit of paratroopers were called in on the 7th of October. They participated in the battles on that day in the Nahal Oz area and in Be'eri. In Be'eri, and helped relieve them from the terrorists that were there over about, what was it, 2 weeks?
Yes.
For 2 weeks. Then they went into training for the paratrooper for their assignments in the Rimal neighborhood and in the areas there. And you were there for?
I was in the Rimal area for a total of 28 days. Then we went back into Israel for 2 days of like refreshment. After that, we went back into the Sajaiya region for another 3 weeks. After that, I technically finished my mandatory service and I chose to come back to the central region of Gaza in order to help the battles there.
And there's a lot of questions because anybody following the news here knows that there's the media constantly puts a damper on that. The soldiers themselves, how do they feel?
Most people feel as like it's an honor. It is an honor. We feel like we got the opportunity to actually serve our country, to protect our people. And as long as we have as long as we have as people have our backs back in the country, and as long as people support us from behind, we feel like we can do our job well and we're doing the right thing.
And while you were there in the combat, what were you expecting? What did you see actually?
In general, I expected it to be like the Palestinian areas inside Israel, just like villages, small houses, anything like that. It was nothing like that. When I was in the Rimal area, it was
Rimal is the affluent area, the rich area in Gaza, and
there's skyscrapers, buildings that are 10 and over stories.
You told me about
houses.
You told me about swimming pools.
They live there like rich, like people in the rich neighborhoods of New York.
And were there civilians there when you were?
When we were there were in the Ramal area, there were no civilians. When we went to the central areas of Gaza, they told us that there might be a danger of civilians, so we had to be more cautious, really choose where we're pointing our weapons to.
How did you identify the terrorists?
It was very easy. They were carrying weapons. They were the ones who shoot first. Even if not, we had like the equipment to identify them. Most of the time they would be carrying weapons and not have protective equipment like helmets and vests. Unlike our soldiers, this was the main identification.
And when you went into homes and you went into, what did you see there? That's one of the things you told me that I found very interesting.
Yes, almost 99% of the houses we've been to had at least some connection to terrorist forces. Either it was terrorist, like Hamas uniforms, or terrorist flags, actual weapons, ammunitions. Almost every single house had connection to one of the terrorist organizations that operate in Gaza.
I was also with the paratroopers back 40 years ago. I fought in Lebanon. We did encounter children who were fighting. Do you have any incidents where there were children involved or youth below the age of 15 or something like that? We identify them as
Yes.
children.
Yes, we have seen houses in areas where we identified women and children. We did not attack these areas, but after we've evacuated the areas and raided those places, we've found ammunition and weapons in those homes.
With them there.
With them there, yes.
So nothing really changes. Your unit went out now. I'm happy to say you've completed your service and now will be assigned to a reserve unit. What are your, without giving too much details, what are the guys with the 890th being?
The 890th Battalion is currently designated to be back with the 35th Paratrooper Brigade to go to the western areas of Gaza and fight there for the next whoever knows how long, however long it's going to take. The Khan Yunis area.
Did you run into tunnels, things like that? Were there?
Yes. We've run into tunnels. Myself and my unit have aided combat combat
oh my God. You got me there.
Combat engineers.
Engineers, that's the word. Thank you.
We've helped combat engineers explode blow up giant tunnels. We have found areas like tunnels that contain ammunition, tunnels that connect networks of tunnels that connect between the cities. We've seen that on almost a daily basis inside the homes, underneath children's beds, anywhere.
Somebody here asked if we have pictures. No, they weren't. They have combat footage that they took with their helmets, but that we can't receive. They didn't have their phones with them or cameras. So we also, unfortunately, weren't able to see any of their pictures there. Maybe it's for the better. We did receive from them footage from Hanukkah when they had candle lighting ceremonies, and we saw you there. So we were very happy to see that. All in all, the spirits of the soldiers, how are they feeling?
Very high. We're proud to do what we're doing. And as I said, as long as our country has our backs, we are happy to serve for as long as needed.
And also thank all the people here who are watching and listening every day and showing their support to Israel. I, as a father of an IDF soldier, as an Israeli, I'm also very grateful to all of you. And for those of you who have prayed for the soldiers, thank you for your prayers as well. I guess that's it. So I'm happy now. We can sleep better. And thank all of you for joining us.
Gilad, thank you so much for everything you did to protect my family, to protect all of the families here in Israel. You are a hero. We really, really thank you so much. And it's amazing to see you healthy, in good spirits, back at home. Thank you so much to all of our viewers, all of our supporters for tuning in to this briefing. We will be back with you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern time. Until then, stay safe, stay strong. Take care, everyone.